Hi there, this is Heather of Shutterbug 101. Today we'll be going over a walkthrough of the Sony A7C with its kit lens, the 28-60. Let's get started. The Sony A7C is a 24 megapixel full-frame mirrorless camera that has 5-axis in-body stabilization, 693 focus points, and a fully articulating touch LCD screen. It has a continuous drive of 10 frames per second, shoots 4K video up to 30 frames, has a microphone and headphone port, and is environmentally sealed. This camera is perfect for someone who loves to do a little bit of everything, including video. Today we'll be going over the buttons, dials, and menus to help you navigate this camera a little easier. Alright, so today we are going over the Sony, the new A7C. This is a fantastic camera. I personally love it. They essentially took the style of their crop sensor cameras, the A6000s, and they made it a full frame with the, of course, articulating screen, which is what we've all been demanding as Sony shooters is where's that articulating screen that we need. So finally they were able to put it to this guy here, and it's a pretty great camera overall. Maybe I'm biased, I shoot with Sony on a regular basis, but I personally love this camera. It's a fantastic camera, very great quality as you saw in the example footage that I gave before going over the walkthrough. You'll also see more video footage with a vlog with this next week, so keep an eye out for that. We're going to go ahead and get started here. We're going to go over the front of the camera first, as always. The lens that comes with this camera is built to be compact, so as you can see it starts with a dot. In order to get started, because if you see that we turned the camera on here, it does automatically tell you please extend the lens by rotating the zoom ring to take photos or video. So what you want to do is you want to extend this to the 28 spot. At that point you can zoom from 28 to 60, and then when you're putting it away you just put it right back to the dot. There's a little bit of resistance there, but that is normal. This is a 4 to 5.6 lens, so it's a great starter overall, especially to see how this camera does. I found that it was a very great lens to work with, for the example footage. We have our button right here to go ahead and release the lens. So you're going to go ahead, you'll remove that. In order to put the lens back on, you're going to line up the white dot on the lens to the white dot on the body, turn and click into place. Right here we do have our LED autofocus assist light. So what that's going to be for is when you're taking pictures of a scene that's either too dark or not enough detail, it'll shine that light out to help it focus. Going to this side of the camera here, you can see we don't have any doors here. It's a nice smooth grip, really nice material on this body. I'm very happy with what they did here. It's less likely to fall apart as you've seen with the older A7s, the A7 II, A7R2, and so on. On this side of the camera here, you can see this is where we're going to find our doors. So in this door here, you can see this is where we're going to have our mic port. You can attach the mic to the port here and then run it on the hot shoe at the top, which we'll go over here in a moment. This is going to be our card slot here, which is UHS 2 compatible. So make sure that when you get a card for this camera, it has the Roman numeral 2 on it. That way it can keep up with the processing power that this has to dish out. It also shows a little picture of the card with the little corner cut off, so you know exactly which way to put that card in. And then in this door here is where we have our headphone port. Is where we have our USB-C port, thank goodness, so you can charge the battery in body or on the go. You can supply it power as you record, which is pretty fantastic. And then you have your HDMI cable as well, or I should say HDMI port as well, because that will allow you to connect this to an external screen, to say a television screen if you want to show off pictures and video from the camera, that type of thing. The USB-C port will also be used for transferring data and firmware updates. This port has a lot of functions to do with this camera, so keep that in mind. Going to the bottom of the camera here, you can see we have our universal tripod port as always. It's our universal screw mount for that. And then we have our nice big battery under here. It's going to be the Z battery to give us a lot of that power. And then we're going to go to the top of the camera here. So the top of the camera, you can see, again, very simple overlay. We have our hot shoe here, which is going to be underneath this little cover here. You'll be able to mount your mic on this. You can also mount an external flash as well. As you can see, this does not have a built-in flash, as the majority of full-frame cameras don't. So if you would like to add some extra light in portraits or event situations, that would be the way to go for that. We do have a built-in mic here, which is going to be a few places actually. So you'll see there's microphones here, microphone here, microphone here, and I believe this is a mic as well. If not, then it's the playback speaker to hear your video. And naturally, if you're going to listen to your video off the camera, you're definitely going to want the headphones because it's not going to be able to give you very accurate sound, just to hear that it has sound in general. But it's nice because with these mics, they are going to be much more directional than the typical just one or two mics that you have on top of the camera, so that's going to be very nice. We have our mode dial here. So automatic mode, of course, is going to be full auto. You're letting the camera make all the decisions for you. This is a good mode to start out with if you're brand new to the Sony system, if you're brand new to just using a camera in general, as this is a very user-friendly camera. It can be a little overwhelming at first working with it, so automatic is going to be a great mode to start in. But once you start getting comfortable, you'll want to start moving into at least your P mode. That's your program mode. Program mode is going to be very similar to auto. It's just going to allow you to have a little bit more customization. So you'll be able to change your metering modes, your focusing modes, where you want to focus, that type of thing, while the camera kind of helps assist you with everything else. So I would say this is kind of your assistant mode, being on the P mode. The A mode is going to be your aperture mode. That's going to control the aperture, or these numbers here, which is the biggest aperture that this specific lens can get, from 28 to 60. So the aperture mode is going to allow you to adjust the opening in the camera lens, letting more or less light in for low light situations, but also getting that blurred background effect. So you can see here how my hands are blurry, but the camera is in focus. That is because my camera is operating at a rather low number, high opening aperture. That is how you get that effect. And then in the S mode here, that's going to control your shutter speed. This mode is going to be for showing motion or freezing motion. So if you have a lot of movement going on, this is a great mode to be in. Now, if you want to learn more about your S, A, and P modes, I'm going to tie in my playlist at the very end of this video of camera basics, where I do go over these modes in a little bit more detail with some physical examples. And if you have any other questions about that, just let me know. We do have full manual mode here, which is going to be all the photographer. The camera is assisting with nothing at all. So in manual mode, you are doing all the deciding. You're telling the camera exactly what you want it to do. You have full control. So I don't recommend jumping right into manual mode if you don't understand your shutter speed, aperture, and ISO yet, the three interrelated variables that make your photo. But definitely start exploring the P, A, and S mode if you are still shooting on auto. The film strip is going to be our video mode. This is solely for video. However, if you're in your M, A, S, P, or auto mode, you can still record video with this red button here. So you push it once to start recording, push it again to stop recording. Pretty simple. The video mode specifically is going to be for seeing the mic levels on the screen, changing certain aspects of the menu for video, that type of thing. The S and Q option here on the dial is your slow and quick. This is for slow motion or quick video. That'll give you easy access to doing that just by turning your dial instead of readjusting your frame rate and everything. Then we have 1, 2, and 3. Now 1, 2, and 3 are going to be customizable modes. So if you have, say, a studio setup, or there are certain settings that you really like to shoot in a specific circumstance that you regularly shoot in, you can actually save your settings to one of these options here. And if you go out shooting and you end up being in your auto or P mode, just to say go on a walk around the park, take some pictures, and then you return to the situation that you saved, you just have to dial back to your 1, 2, or 3 mode for that. And of course, for the rest of the settings here, I'm going to stay on the P mode because when we hit our menu, that's going to show us the majority of our options. So if you're following along and you see something a little different, just be sure that you're on your P mode here. We have our off and on switch here right by the shutter button. The shutter button is here, the big silver button. Push halfway down to focus and push all the way down to take the picture. We have our exposure dial here. So you can see here, if I have the screen going on and I want to adjust that dial. So if I adjust to plus numbers, it'll make the scene brighter. If I adjust to minus numbers, it makes the scene darker. So it's just a little tidbit there to get you a little bit brighter, a little bit darker, depending on how the camera's metering. Okay, so the back of the camera here, you can see that we have our viewfinder to the side rather than in the middle as with their previous full frame cameras. Personally, I like this style. For some people, it can be a little uncomfortable, so I would recommend going and trying one of these guys out, seeing how it feels in your hands, look through the viewfinder at your nearest camera store. But I personally love it, especially with the smaller size. This does have a sensor here, so when you bring your face up to the sensor, it turns this guy on, and then when you take your face away, it turns the screen back on. So it's really nifty. Now, you may forget that that is a thing here, and if your strap accidentally goes in front of it, then it tends to turn that on as well. You can turn that on and off inside the menu here, so if you find that you're not going to use the viewfinder very much and you're solely going to use the screen, maybe you're a videographer, then that is what you can do. This here is going to control the viewfinder sharpness, it's your diopter. So very similar if you were to go to the doctor or the eye doctor and have your eyes tested, they would put 2 slides in front of you and say, oh, is this blurry, is this sharp, you know, what does it look like? So you adjust the sharpness and blurriness of this by bringing it closer to your eye. So someone like you, if you wear glasses, might see a little bit different from me. If you want to shoot without your glasses, you could do so. This is our menu button, which we're going to go over last. We have our adjustment knob here and adjustment knob here. You can turn either of these to control different aspects here. Your shutter speed or aperture usually. We have a back button autofocus if you prefer to autofocus back here rather than with the shutter button up front. This is also used to zoom in on photos after you've pressed your playback button. So notice that there's a symbol next to some of these buttons here, the C next to the trash can, that type of thing. So this here would be a custom button, not looking back at pictures, which will control our white balance. That's the temperature here. That's what that custom button is going to be, and you can change that as you would like. The function button here in our shooting mode is going to be our quick menu. It gives you a quick, easy way to change things that you'll change on a regular basis. So the first one here is your drive mode. This is going to control, you know, the shutter button when you hit that button down. So the 1 square is going to do 1 picture if you click and hold that button down. The next one is continuous shooting mode. That's 10 frames per second if you click and hold that button down. And then we have like your timer and bracketing and other options under the same mode. The next one here is going to be your focus mode. This is how the camera focuses. So you have AFS, which is going to be single shot autofocus, which is for still subjects that's going to focus and lock on to it. You have AFC, which is autofocus continuous, which is going to continually autofocus as the subject moves. And then you have AFA, which is automatic. You're letting the camera decide if the subject is still or moving. And then of course you have your manual focus options as well. Then we have our focus area, where the camera's focusing. So wide is going to be kind of the whole screen there. You can do a specific zone. You can do center, very flexible spot. So very specific spot where you want to focus. And this ties in with the touch screen as well of where you would like to focus at. Next one here is going to be your exposure compensation. Again, this can be changed with this dial up here, so if you wanted to, you could actually change that option to something totally different. Yes, this is customizable as well. You have your ISO, so that's going to be image sensitivity to light. You have your metering mode, which is going to be where it's taking the light from. So you have multi, which is considering the entire image. Center, of course, whatever's in the center. And then you have your spot, which is generally wherever you would like to physically be if it's not directly in the center. And we have our flash mode if we had a flash on top. We have white balance again. This is also tied into this custom button here. We have creative style. This is how it's displaying color, so you can do standard, which I would recommend just leaving it in. You have vivid, you have black and white, that type of thing. You have your stabilization, which really should always be on unless you're shooting on a tripod, so keep that in mind. And then we have file format, so you can shoot in RAW, you can shoot in JPEG, RAW and JPEG, whatever you'd like to do there. And then your shooting mode, which you can also change that too, because it's really not going to offer you any options. We also have some shortcuts here, so if we hit up for display, the DISP, it's going to change how we see the screen here, where we just see information. Personally, I like this one here. It's the most simple. You know, it doesn't complicate things, just gives you your general information. However, if I were to go with a second favorite, I'd probably say it's this one. Although it is a little busy, it is telling you more information of what's going on. It tells you how many pictures you have left or how much video you have if you're on the video mode, what your battery level is, that type of thing. But if I want to clean it up, I just do that. If we push to the left, again, that's where we can get our drive mode. We can also get it off that quick menu, ISO, same thing. You can get it off your quick menu here. Now, I recommend if you're learning your camera and you're getting used to your shutter speed and aperture, I recommend keeping your ISO on auto and setting a limit to it. So you're basically telling the camera you can choose any ISO between 100 and a certain number. And for my sample shooting, I wanted to see how it would do going all the way up to 12,800. And typically I would try and keep it as low as 6,400. But I really wanted to see how it did, and I felt that it still performed very well with it being at the 24 megapixel mark. When you hit down, that is at the moment not going to do anything, but in your playback mode here, you can see that, you know, we have all of our pictures here, all the videos and stuff we did. If I wanted to pick a picture here, let's see, let's find a picture like this one, and I wanted to zoom into that, you could hit the magnifying glass here. You can zoom in or zoom out with this and just push down or up on it to see how sharp that is. Pretty good, not too bad. And then if you want to get out of that, you just press the menu button. If we push down at this point, it's going to show us a whole grid. So instead of going through one by one, you can kind of see a grid to find what you need, which is kind of nice. And then if you wanted to delete any images, that's what that trash can is for. Also, just so you guys know, your universal escape button is going to be your shutter button halfway down. We'll get right back into shooting mode. All right, and last but not least, we're going to go ahead and go over the menu here. Okay, so one thing that I think a lot of people, when it comes down to it, anytime a camera comes out, there's going to be some sort of complaint. I think it's mind-blowing that they finally were able to get in their articulating screen on a Sony camera. Awesome, great job, guys. But the biggest complaint right now is, it's not fully touchscreen, so you can't touch the menus, which is not a bummer to me, but it's still a big complaint for some people. So it's touchscreen and a matter for you to focus, but not fully touchscreen. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start at the first tab here. Now, a lot of the options in the menu are available in the quick menu on the outside of the camera, so I may skip over quite a bit. If I skip over something and you want to learn it more in detail, please leave me a comment below. I'll be happy to answer any questions for you. I typically answer them within the first 24 hours, if not much sooner, because, you know, I get anxiety from stuff like that and not answering questions. But I'm just gonna kind of go through the most important things for you to know, just so you are aware. So you can see here on the first camera tab, this is going to be mainly photography. The second tab is going to be mainly for video. You can see this first tab here has 14 pages. So on the first page here, we have our file format. Again, that's available in your quick menu, where you have JPEG RAW or JPEG and RAW. If you want it compressed, I personally like uncompressed. That way I can have the majority control when I edit it in Lightroom. You have JPEG quality, always go extra fine, always go L for large. You have your aspect ratio, 3:2 or 4:3 is going to be the most common. APS-C, if you want to use any crop sensor lenses on this camera, now it does cut down your megapixels by 1.5, so be sure you're aware of that when it comes to using that. You have your long exposure noise reduction. I like to have that off. Again, I like to have full control when I'm in Lightroom. Color space, you want to keep that at an sRGB. You have your lens comp, you have drive mode again, and your quick menu along with bracketing settings, interval shooting function, your memory recall, you have your custom shooting set, that's the 1, 2, 3, your focus mode and your focus area, that's all going to be in your quick menu as well. You have switch vertical, horizontal autofocus area, that's going to be up to you. You have your autofocus illuminator, that's that light up front that I showed you guys. Face eye autofocus set, this does have human and animal eye autofocus, so that's going to be pretty excellent. Autofocus tracking, you have your aperture drive and autofocus. You know, a lot of these you're just not going to change, you're not going to play with, so again, I'll probably skip over it there too. You have your autofocus area registration if you want it to register the area autofocus, you know, after you've taken the picture. Personally, I don't really care. You have your focus frame color if you're shooting in manual focus. It shows you by outlining it in red or white. You can change that. Autofocus area auto clear. I have that on because if I want to change my autofocus regularly, I want to clear that out. I have it set to circulating the focus point to kind of move around, so staying in the same spot every time. And that's just me. You have your exposure compensation again, this dial right here. You have resetting the composition. So that's if you change that in your quick menu. Your ISO settings, your metering mode, again, that's all going to be in your quick menu. Your exposure step, keep it at 0.3. That typically is the regular settings on your camera. Auto exposure lock with shutter, I personally like to have that on because exposure for me is super important. You have your flash modes, flash settings if you do have a flash plugged in up here. You also have like your red eye reduction, your white balance again, quick menu, or your C button right out of the box. You have your HDR if you want to set that on. It does automatically do the dynamic range optimizer. You have your creative style. So again, that's going to be your color control. So like standard is going to be the regular. You have vivid, black and white, all that fun stuff. You have your picture profile. You also have picture effect, which is only going to be able to be used when you're shooting in JPEG, not in RAW. Your picture effect will give you different options, like different sort of effects, like different black and white options. I believe there is a color specific picker in there where you can select one color and the rest of the photo will be black and white. Sepia, high key, low key, those type of things. So if you want to play with those, make sure you're shooting in JPEG. Shutter auto white balance lock. I personally have that off. That's just me. Focus magnifier. So what that does is if you're also focusing manually, it zooms in a little bit to ensure what you're taking a picture of is actually in focus. And you can also set a time for that of how long you would like that to be up. I would just set it to 2 seconds because you don't need to have it up for very long after you've chosen. You have your initial focus magnification, manual focus assist, anti-flicker shoot if you're taking pictures in an environment where you're maybe shooting under fluorescent lights that are going to be flickering. You have your face registration if you want to register faces. I don't really like it, but that's just, again, my preference. Then we're on to tab 2, which again is going to be more of our video mode. So a lot of the very similar settings, just toward video specifically. We have your file format if you would like to shoot in HD or 4K, how many frames, your slow and quick settings, autofocus transition speed. So that's all very customizable. Your audio recording and your audio recording level, audio level display, the wind noise reduction, again, all for video specifically. If you would like to do the movie with the shutter button rather than the red button, the red button is so prominent on this, I would just keep that off. You have silent shooting. Now, you can turn this on, but do remember, if you do turn this on thinking, yeah, I want it to be quiet all the time, it may turn off a few features like continuous mode or any sort of flash that you have going on as well. Release without lens, so if you're using an off-brand lens that won't communicate with the camera, you can enable this. Release without card, I would personally have this disabled because if you're anything like me, I forget to put cards in my camera sometimes. And if it doesn't tell me that I'm missing a card, I'll just take pictures and I'll go, oh, let's see how well those came out. I'll press the play button and oh, guess what? There's no card. It didn't save any of those pictures. So I like to have it on disable, so it lets me know, hey, there's no card in here. I'm not taking pictures, and I can go and grab one. We have the stabilization again, so you have settings to that as well. Your zoom, if you have a lens that has an electronic zoom available. You have the display button here. You have your finder and monitor if you would like that to be automatic or you'd like to set it to one or the other, like I was saying before. Your desired frame rate, zebra or grid line settings. Live view display, I would just do setting effect on. Continuous shooting length, that's going to be preference. I'm not sure what the importance is of that. I'll look into that more. You have your auto review for if you take a picture, how long you want it to pop up on the screen for. I say 2 seconds is a great time frame. Your custom keys, which is this one here. So if you'd like to change it on your picture taking mode, if you want to change it on your video mode from the dial, or your picture viewing mode. You have your function menu set if you'd like to change anything in there. Your dial settings, that's this thing right here. The dial and wheel setup, which is going to be here and here for when you're taking pictures. You have your AV, TV, rotate. All of these are going to be your custom operations. So the touch operation is going to be touch focus. You can do it to touch focus and take a picture if you wanted to. Audio signals, which I like to have that little beep there when it's in focus. The third tab here is going to be our network tab. This is going to allow you to control all of your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth settings. So you can transfer pictures and videos to your phone through the camera itself, which is really great. You can also do PC remote function because now with the pandemic happening this year and everything, a lot of camera companies have developed their apps so you can use their applications on the computer to use your camera as a web device or a web camera. So it's pretty excellent there as well. And then the next one here is going to be everything regarding your playback here. Pictures that you've taken, you can protect pictures, rotate pictures, delete pictures, rate your pictures. You can do slideshows. You can display as a group. You can change your jump settings when you're jumping from group to group on pictures. The next tab here is going to be general settings. So physical things about the camera, like your monitor brightness, your gamma display, your delete confirm, display quality, the cleaning mode. If you need someone to clean your sensor, you have the touch operation if you want to turn that on or off. HDMI settings, USB connection, your language, date and time, all that fun stuff. You also have your copyright info, as well as over here we have our firmware version. So if you do need to upgrade the firmware on this, you can do that through the USB-C cable. You also have format on here, which with every camera walkthrough, I really like to go through format because a lot of people don't realize the importance of using it. So what formatting does is it permanently erases everything on your SD card, including the data. It gives you a fresh start so you can go and take more pictures. Now, you never want to format your card until you have backed up your pictures to your computer, an external hard drive, a cloud system, like an internet-based storage, before you format. That way you can go out, start over, and take new pictures and continue on. If you're the type of person that just goes out and buys a new SD card for every situation and that's your archival system, then ignore everything I had to say. Or at least keep in mind to never format your card. The reason you want to format rather than using the trash can to delete all the pictures is because when you use the trash can, it deletes the visible file but not the data, and it allows that data to be overwritten over and over again. When that happens, it leaves a window open for it to be corrupted, for the card to lock you out, and then you can't have access to your future files. So in the risk that that may ever happen, it's important that every now and then you go, oh, you know what, I've backed these up to my computer, I just need to refresh it, I don't need any of the pictures on here, and you just go in and format it. And then of course you do have like recover image through the database. If you accidentally deleted something, you could try that in camera. Your video file settings, display media info. You also have setting reset. So if you are playing with this camera, you're going through all the different settings, trying different things, and all of a sudden your camera's doing something funny and you have no idea what you did. What you can do is just go setting reset, and it's going to reset your camera settings to how they are currently out of the box right now. So that way, if you're on a trip and you get stuck, you have no idea who to ask what's wrong with your camera. Your first step is just resetting your settings. If that doesn't fix the problem, there could be something wrong with your camera. And then our last tab here is going to be the My Menu. What is so great about the My Menu tab is you saw how many pages and nonsense we had to go through all these 5 other tabs. Now, there are only a handful of things you're really going to use because either they're already on your quick menu or you're not, you know, they're going to be rarely used, like format. That might be used every few months or so. If that's the case, instead of having to dig for it, you can actually add it to the My Menu tab by going Add Item. And instead of having to dig through here every single time, you just go to your My Menu tab and it's right there every time. So again, as with a lot of our newer cameras today, these cameras are so highly customizable that you can make it your own very, very easily. If you guys have any questions about the Sony A7C, please let me know in the comments below. Also, if you would like to see another camera or perhaps a lens comparison to like a Tamron or a Sigma or something like that, in comparison to name brand, also let me know in the comments below. Be sure to add that to my list. And until next time, keep your eye out for inspiration, Shutterbugs. Bye.